Happy New Year, Krisalys Krusaders. It's your girl, Miss Krisalys, aka Chris, and I wanted to make this video just to basically recap 2025 and sort of talk about my vision for 2026. There's a lot to discuss, so that would have been way too long to type out, so I figured I would just make this video. There's no script, no editing. This is just coming straight from the heart, and I definitely intend to get better at content creation, especially doing videos. So this will probably be a little rusty, but hey, you gotta start somewhere, right? So let's just get right into it. For 2025, a lot of you know that it was a pretty rough year for me, just being honest. I got laid off from my corporate job in December of 2024, literally 4 days after me and Yen had moved into this new apartment that we're in right now. And that was pretty hard for me because since the age of 14, I've pretty much always worked. So I never really knew what it was like to be unemployed. So those 6 months were pretty much a blur for me, just constantly going to networking events, filling out job applications, getting rejection emails, and I even paid a resume writer like $800, and I was still having a hard time finding a job. Like, I was unemployed for 6 months, and I kind of learned firsthand why a lot of people were saying the job market is cooked. And it's crazy because that's still happening, and I just feel really bad for people that are in the market, because I've been there, done that. And that whole period where I was living off of severance and unemployment, it took a major toll on my mental health. And, during that time, I was lucky enough to be able to attend Frosty Faustings and Texas Showdown because, I had paid for Frosty Faustings, before I was laid off. And Texas Showdown is right here in Houston where I live. So it was feasible. But just the whole situation I was in made it hard to truly enjoy it to the fullest. And obviously, I couldn't go to any other majors during the year, which really broke my heart because majors are a very important part of my life. It's the chance to see the homies in person, and I just wasn't able to, unfortunately. But this leads me to, I guess, the middle part of 2025 where I did manage to get a job. It was a project manager or IT project management and business analysis position at a local university. But I'll be honest, it was pretty bad. Just even from day one, it was just a very toxic work environment, a lot of micromanagement, and they really didn't give me much work to do. So a lot of the days just dragged on. And on top of that, there was just a really bad parking situation. I was paying a bunch of money just to park, and then I'd have to also get there at least 30 minutes early just to get a spot. And even then, I didn't always get a spot and would have to park far away and walk a lot just to get to my office. And then there was no privacy. My office was tiny, it was freezing, and it was in constant view of a coworker. And I'm the type of person that doesn't like to be watched when I'm working, so that definitely piqued my anxiety a lot. And it almost just reminded me of a Mean Girls culture. They weren't very inclusive of me. They would go off and do things without even inviting me. And they would even make snide remarks about me just for the way I talked, or saying, oh, your voice is too loud. And, anytime I wanted to do some kind of suggestion to my boss, they were like, no, you gotta go along with what the boss says. So there was just no innovation. It was just a very not a good place to be at all, really. And then on top of all that, the commute was horrible. It was in downtown Houston, so it was an hour, sometimes more, each way, which costed a lot of gas and a lot of sanity, let's be honest. In fact, it got so bad one time, towards the end of my time there, I'm not even kidding you guys. It literally took me 2.5 hours to get home after I had gotten off of work. Like, normally it would be like an hour, hour and a half, but I don't know, that day I was just so done that after I got home from that 2.5 hour commute, I said, nah, I can't do this anymore. So called up my boss, told her I'm done. And the next day, turned in my badge, my keys, and all that. And, obviously that was a very risky move because during that time period, I was also interviewing for my current job. So I didn't technically have the job yet. But I'm like, it's whatever because me and Yen had the opportunity to move in with his dad if we needed to. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be ideal, but I don't know. I'd rather do that than deal with this BS anymore. So, but thankfully, I did manage to get the job I have now. I've been here for about 3 months. It's a communications specialist role for a local city government, and it's so much better. It's like night and day from what I had before. Like it's a very positive work culture. I even get paid more. I have plenty of work to do to keep me busy so the days don't drag on. In fact, almost too much work to do because I'm basically like a one-man marketing team for this entire city. But, I'm okay with that. I'd rather be too busy than not busy enough because then the days just go on and on. But as great as the job has been, it kind of was a little rough because before I had started, as you guys know, Dexter passed away very unexpectedly. Me and Yen were thinking he was going to be around for at least a couple more years, but, he was just hurting and we knew it was time to let him go. So we, called a veterinarian, and she did an in-home euthanasia, and it was really hard because, Dexter basically died in my arms, but I would have rather that been the case than, taking him to a vet in a very unfamiliar situation. And so he passed peacefully, and we still honor him. Like, we haven't forgotten about him. We have like a shrine that we've set up in our dining room that I've actually posted pictures of in the Discord. And me and Yen also do this special tradition where we'll hunt 13 monsters in Monster Hunter Wilds, to honor his 13 years of life. And the reason we do Monster Hunter is because the little palicos in that game kind of look exactly like him. And I don't know, it's just kind of a way to keep his memory alive. But on top of that, me and Yen also got some new cats. Their names, they're very young. They're like kittens. Kaya, she's a sort of a snowshoe mix, like a Siamese type cat. She's 8 months old. And then there's Shadow, a black cat. She's 9 months old. They're very troublesome sometimes. They definitely keep us on our toes. But, we love them. And I've also posted pictures of them in the Discord that you guys can go check out. And I would obviously be remiss if I didn't mention that I hit one of my long-time goals of getting master rank on Siegfried. That's why I decided to wear my Siegfried shirt, for this video, because that was a goal that I had been working towards for like 2 years. I didn't think I would ever be able to do it, and then I did, so I guess that was another way that I honored Dexter, and proved myself wrong yet again, and showing that I just need to have more confidence in myself. And, obviously I got Siegfried here, always cheering me on, here on my little Blue Yeti microphone. So yeah, that's basically how my year went, but after I started my job, I came to this harsh realization that this past year I had been so focused on my employment situation, like the job hunting, the toxic work environment, and while I was at that job, I forgot to mention this, while I was at my job at the university, I didn't even really have an escape at home because I was doing volunteer work and doing stuff like with a career coach. And so I had like no free time. So my mental health obviously tanked even worse during that time. And so the new job was definitely what I needed. It definitely boosted my mental health somewhat. But I came to this realization that I had been so focused on the job hunt and that whole thing that I was kind of isolated. I kind of withdrew, like, obviously not intentionally, but withdrew from friends and family. So here I am, I have this job, like, it's great, but now I don't really know how to socialize, or I guess I do, but I'm a little out of practice with it and tend to get very overstimulated. And so that's kind of leading me into my vision for this year, 2026. So I have my goals here on my, like, I guess, script that I'll share with you guys, very high level. But the biggest thing is now that my job situation is okay, now I'm going to be focusing on, hobbies, my personal life, socialization, just basically rebuilding my foundation that I kind of lost in this last year, just kind of living my life to the fullest, getting some routines in place to be able to do that. So me and Yen, we sat down, I want to say about like a day or two ago, and kind of mapped out our goals for the year. So I have goals in 4 categories. There's financial, hobbies, socialization, and my career, and then also a few like for me and Yen and our relationship. So first, on the financial side, I want to pay off my student loan debt in 2 to 3 years. So the goals to kind of achieve that was creating a budget, which me and Yen actually sat down and did, and it was a pretty eye-opening experience because I realized I was recklessly spending my money. And so I was actually able to cut out $90 in monthly subscriptions that I didn't need anymore. And another thing we want to prioritize is making sure that we have money set aside for majors, so I don't have to experience that hurt of not being able to go to them anymore. So we're going to be, making sure we more intentionally save and spend our money, and also making consistent payments on the student loan debt. Next, for my career goal is to basically just have a more optimal work-life balance. I feel like as of right now, I'm still learning stuff at the job, but I don't feel like I have a good work-life balance. Like, I go way too hard at work and don't have much energy for home. So to do that, one thing I'm working on at work is creating a social media calendar. So instead of, scrambling for content week to week and just kind of winging it, I'm more intentional. Like, I know exactly what I want to post about each week. And another thing I want to work on is better self-care, like making sure I'm actually getting up to stretch, using the treadmill, like the walking treadmill in my office, taking breaks, and hydrating. I even downloaded like a hydration reminder on my phone to make sure I drink water throughout the day. And another thing I want to do that's kind of related to my career is researching entrepreneurship opportunities, because as great as my job is, sometimes I do wish I had a little more flexibility where I could kind of just sleep in, wake up whenever, like work when it's best for me. But obviously, that takes a little bit of planning and figuring out like good opportunities to do that. So I'll kind of do that as I'm able. And for my hobbies, my long-term goal is to make it out of pools at Texas Showdown. I know that's a pretty ambitious goal, but I think it is achievable. So some ways I want to do that is practicing combos 3 times a week, which also kind of coincides with another goal I had hobby-wise, which is having a consistent stream schedule, because as y'all know, I unfortunately wasn't able to be very consistent with streaming this year. So my goal is to stream at least 3 days a week. Right now I'm thinking that's going to be Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, probably from like 6:30 to 9:30, and I can maybe go a little bit later on Fridays, but and another thing I want to do is make sure I get out of the house at least 2 times a month, because as great as online stuff is, I realize I'd also like to have some more like in-person friends. So some things I'm planning on doing, to get out is there's like a book club I'm gonna check out. There's an archery league I want to join, and obviously going to locals every week, more consistently than I did last year. And there's also a stoicism group that I've been going to each month, so I'm gonna make sure I continue to do that so I can learn how to be more stoic and just have better control over my emotions. And then the last goal, at least for myself, is on the socialization side. My main goal is to make my Discord server more active and just kind of like a main hangout place. So y'all know that I've been talking about revamping my Discord for like the past year. Well, I'm happy to announce that I have finally completed that. So make sure you go check it out, and you can expect to see me hanging out in there, posting in there a lot more. So I appreciate y'all's patience with that. I know that was way long overdue. As for like my short-term socialization goals, one of those that kind of goes along with the server revamp is doing community events. Like it's great to hang out on stream with y'all, but I want to take it a step further and really, form closer ties. And I think a good way to do that is to do community events. So some ideas I have is like, trivia, karaoke, game nights, things like that. So I'm excited to start implementing those. And then I also want to do a better job of reaching out and hanging out with people. Like I've had some people reach out saying, hey, do you want to hang out or do this? Which I appreciate when people do that, but I think I need to do a better job of doing that myself. So, don't be surprised if I reach out to y'all requesting a hangout or even just catching up, because I think that's important to stay connected with everybody. And then the last thing I want to do is increasing my networking on Twitch. Making sure I'm being more active in my friends' Twitch streams. And then I also want to get back to my roots of checking out new people. So kind of doing a combination of chatting or being more active in my friends' Twitch streams while also seeking out new people so I can grow my network even more. So those are basically, my goals for the year. As far as me and Yen, we have some relationship goals. The biggest thing, I guess not necessarily a long-term goal, but some, I guess, shorter-term goals that we decided together is we obviously want to go to locals and do more stuff together, because we haven't really done that much. Like, he hasn't gone to locals with me much, so I'm excited for him to be joining me in those endeavors. And then in addition to the, 13 hunts that we do for Dexter, we want to just have more gaming constants, like just a bigger list of games we can play together, because that was kind of something we struggled to figure out this past year. And then we also want to work out together at least 3 days a week, because we haven't been the best about doing that, and I'm realizing that exercise is a very important part of, just working out, or just maintaining your health, both physical and mental. So, yeah, those are, I know I've gone on like way longer than I intended to, so my apologies on that. And I also wanted to apologize as well for just not really being consistent with, interacting in my Discord and with streaming and just, really being there for you guys. It definitely goes against what I stand for, because you guys know that I want to cultivate a positive and welcoming environment, and I didn't do the best job of that just because of, life was lifing. But, things are starting to stabilize. I have a better job, we have cats, we're still honoring Dexter. So me and Yen are slowly but surely figuring out a new routine and just kind of rebuilding, re-stabilizing after a pretty rough year. So this is going to be our comeback year. We're going to rebuild our identities and just pursue our goals in full force. So, I guess I wanted to wrap up by wishing y'all a happy New Year's once again. And I look forward to a great 2026 with you all. So thank you all for sticking by my side through thick and thin. And yeah, let's make this a great year. All right, and until next time, have a good one, Krisalys Krusaders. Bye.